All right. Okay, so this is Dr. Kalina Collins of Retrain Athletic Academy, where we train and retrain athletes and coaches. And I have the privilege to be joined here today with Elijah Dare, who is a graduate of our track and field team. And we are going to be continuing our series of 21 questions. And today's topic is being a homeschooled athlete. So, Elijah, thank you so much for being on with me today
No
um,
problem, coach.
to answer 21 questions. So, we're going to jump right in with these questions about being a homeschooled athlete. So, I think one of the biggest questions that a lot of people want to know up front, first thing is, what is the main reason for your switch from public school to homeschool?
Well, for me, the public school that I was at, some things weren't working out with the magnet program I was in and things of that sort. So then me and my mom talked it over and decided that the school I was on for was not a good fit at all. Like that was automatically not gonna happen. So we decided that why not just do homeschool? And because of where I was in public school, I had enough credits to uh, finish high school in 3 years instead of doing four. So I decided to be homeschool and just finish out this year as a senior and take a couple of honors courses just to like kind of maintain because I was going through high school taking the honors and the AP courses. So I didn't want to like go to homeschool and just go back to the basic level courses. So I was like, why not just maintain the honors courses so that it looks good on my GPA, but as well as just to maintain that level of difficulty with the schoolwork.
Nice. So, what was the name of your homeschool organization?
International Connections Academy. It's kind of they're based in Baltimore, but it's a pretty great school. I like the organization and the way they have everything set up, and they're pretty for the most part they stay on top of you, so you'll feel like you're still getting that in school environment because you always have access to your teachers and whatnot, and you just always have that they're always there for you. And then even the counseling, like the counseling for me was always making sure I was staying on track, keeping up with my work. Like she would call if she noticed I was falling behind a little bit, or that or she would even call if she noticed if I was even ahead, just to make sure everything was going well and see how
Hmm.
far I had left and things of that nature.
Oh, wow. Okay, I like that. And so you only attended this school for 12th grade, right?
Yes.
Have you ever homeschooled before that?
No. I think well my brother he did homeschooling, Josh, he did homeschooling all through middle school. But for me, I think it was just that instead of struggling to find the next public school, why not just do homeschooling? And homeschooling wasn't a big deal with me because I didn't need the socialization and everything. And I wasn't one of those who was like I had to like be around people. Like I was able to work by myself and things of that nature. But I like to kind of keep at my own pace anyways, and homeschooling kind of helped with that. They helped me to stay organized, stay on top of my stuff, and but at the same time work on multitasking and things of that nature.
Okay, nice. My next question is, how has homeschool been compared to like attending a public school?
Um, I want to say that well for me anyway, I want to say that it's been better in a way because it's kind of allowed me to hone in on certain skills that I may have had problems with in during with the whole during public school. So I feel like, well, for me, I think it was more so me knowing that I could stay on top of my work because, okay, at one point there I was being homeschooled, so it was like, no, okay, I'm at home, so I don't have to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning to get my work done, or I don't have to start doing this and this as if I was still going to public school. So I just kind of had to make that transition and keep in my back of my head, it was like, okay, but I'm still in school. And like for me to just make sure I'm staying on top of my work so I'm not falling behind. And because I made the transition that I keep my GPA up and things of that sort.
Sure. And then, so did you have any major changes between the two?
Um, Major, not necessarily. Well, I was able to drop my my math class this year because of I already had all math classes covered when I was during public school, so I didn't already had the credits to graduate. So for me, it was more so. It just got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm doing homeschooling, but I'm just trying to be done now. So I dropped that class, and then I picked up another history class because I needed another history credit. So for me, it just kind of worked out because I was able to drop one and pick up another, just for me to make sure that I have everything completed and that I'm good and ready to go for college.
Okay, so in your opinion, what has been like the major changes of being homeschooled? So it sounds like you didn't like really have like a big change, but in your opinion, would you say that you had any like major
Um,
challenges?
I feel like the main thing for me was the motivation. So it got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm at home, so I didn't feel as motivated to do the work because it was at home. So it is what it is. But at the same time, I just had to remember that it was like, okay, I'm still in school, but I'm also an athlete as well. So I have to remember that coaches are still looking at my score, even if I am homeschooled, they still looking checking for grades and things of that sort. So I just had to remember to stay. I had to find a way to be motivated to get up every morning. And my mom helped me with that a lot because we ended up finding a schedule that worked for me to where I could do this, and this, and then like I was able to get my work done because I was in front of a screen all day. And it gets to a point where it's like you're in the screen for so long and you kind of just like lose focus of everything. So
Hmm.
we had a schedule to where it was like I was doing, well, they actually had see, the thing about International Connections Academy, they had a whole planner set out for me. And because my courses, they'll have set dates of when those courses when you should be done with those courses. And then they'll have the assignments I would do for each day. So that kind of helped out as well. But with that planner and then me being in front of a screen all day, it worked out to where I could just wake up, follow those assignments. I might take a break and come back, take a break and come back later to do the other assignments. So I'm not in front of the screen all day. And during that break, either I'm eating or I might just go outside and do some turns because just to incorporate the athlete part with school. And
Right.
that was probably even the best thing about it. So and now because I'm at my own pace, so now I can work with my track schedule and my school schedule all in one.
Nice. So again, it sounded like you didn't have really big challenges, but I can see how just staying motivated can be a very big
Yeah.
challenge for someone who's homeschooled. So what has, in your opinion, what has been your best experience about being homeschooled?
Um, best experience. My best experience would probably have to be the elective portion because in public school we had electives as well. I think I had like one or two elective courses. So when I was at Westlake, I think my electives freshman year was entrepreneurship. No, freshman year my elective was engineering, and then sophomore year I think it was computer sciences or something like that. This year my electives were entrepreneurship, and I think the other one was astronomy, which kind of worked out because I want to be a forensic software forensic analyst, like software forensic analyst. And for me, like astronomy, I was kind of always interested in, but the entrepreneurship I liked a lot because it, although it was the basics, it gave me enough that I needed to know for me going into college. Because I've always had the idea of being an entrepreneur, but at the same time, they uh, they give you an idea of how to manage money, things of that nature. Oh, also, I took personal finance, which helped a lot. Like that was probably my favorite class because it allowed me to focus on what I really like. It gave me like real world
Hmm.
experience of how I would approach different situations. Like the electives in public school, they don't give you as many options, and I don't feel like they're as beneficial as they would be as they were for homeschooling for me.
Wow, those are some intense electives.
Yeah,
I wish I had those in high school.
yeah.
So you played sports in high school. I know you've been talking about a little bit about how you incorporated doing turns and things like that. And so, can you name like which sports you participated in school in general, not just the
Okay.
homeschool portion?
Freshman year, I did football, and I did wrestling sophomore year actually. just to kind of it was just something like sort of an experience, something that I thought I would try. I think it was either sophomore year or that, and like closer to the second semester of freshman year. But yeah, it was more of an experience for me. But it was also kind of like me staying in shape in a way, and then track as well. I didn't do track freshman year at Westlake, but I did it sophomore year, and I'm doing it now, obviously.
Right.
Mhm.
So your main sport is track and field, of course, the field portion. Um, when did you start specializing in throwing the hammer, shot, discus, weight
Um,
throw, those things? Like when would you say you actually specialized in these things?
Maybe sophomore year, well, last year actually. I want to say that because okay, I didn't start throwing until eighth grade, but I think I started taking it more serious sophomore year when I realized my marks were moving up a little bit, but then I realized that I had the potential to actually be somewhere in the rankings and stuff. And then even sophomore year, I was number two in the country for as a sophomore for weight. It might have been I think it was hammer as well. When I realized that, I realized okay, now it has to. I got to start taking this thing seriously because now I got to a point where it was like, okay, I'm up here competing with these the other kids and stuff of that nature, and then I would for me it was just that okay, this is kind of my motivation because I enjoy competing. So now it was like realizing my marks were so high, I was like, okay, maybe I can keep pushing it up, maybe beat a record or two, and see how that goes. So sophomore year, I realized that I could actually be somewhere. And then this, like this year, this past year, um, I only started focusing on hammer and weight, which was after I got my after I signed to Tiffin, and the coach told me that I was only going to be throwing weight and hammer in college. And so then I decided that okay, shot and discus I didn't need to throw because I asked him at first and asked him, should I still be throwing this a shot and discus this season just to finish it out? And he said, I don't. It's up to me. I didn't need to if I didn't want to. And at that point, it got to the point where it was like, okay, if I don't need to, then maybe this indoor season I'll focus on just weight and then get my weight marks up to where I can be. And I finished the season with a 67. And for me, that was like it was. I wasn't the happiest about it, but at the same time, I had to realize that compared to where I started, that was like big improvement because I started throwing maybe like 49, 50 feet, and I wasn't even taking it seriously back then. So when I realized that I was taking it a lot more seriously, that I could actually be somewhere, I realized my marks were going up and the motivation and the way I competed in general was just a whole different change.
Absolutely. I can agree. As your coach, I definitely saw the switch. Would you say that there has been a difference in between being a homeschooled athlete versus a public school athlete?
um, I want to say yes, because being a public school athlete, you have school and then you just have the two-hour practice after school and then that was about it. You never There was never really much more. But me being a club, it was always more to me than just being the thrower at school because the other kids that were throwing at the school, they were only doing it just an extra sport to pick up, just as something to keep them in shape. And most of them were football players. But for me, it was more like an extension for me to hone in more on certain skills at the time because I'd have multiple coaches telling me this, and this. And I just take what I feel like I needed the most and look back at my videos and hone in on certain skills. So throwing at public school, being an athlete at public school was more so a way for me to just hone it. It was an extension of me being a part of a throwing club. But as a homeschool athlete, I feel like it was a whole different agenda because in homeschool athlete, it kind of made me feel like I was more of a college athlete. Well, it gave me that experience because now it got to a point where it was like throwing was basically all I was doing at that point. It was just throwing in school, and I was able to practice a lot more. I got a lot more work done, and then school I was at my own pace, so I was able to manage and do school, but at the same time I was able to incorporate throwing during my school period. So then I was schooling during the day, then I would still go and have practice during the week and then on the weekends.
Absolutely. Um, One of the biggest things that people think is that you, or a lot of athletes in general, you try to stay injury free. So I'm going more towards
Mm-hmm.
the injury side because as your coach, I know that you've been injured before.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question was, did you sustain an injury? Yes, you did. I know that you did. But what was that like for you? Like, how did you get through that time period? Because we're talking about this change between uh, being a public school athlete, being a homeschool athlete, and then
Mm-hmm.
throwing for a club versus throwing in high school, you know, things like that. But there was an injury involved in the midst of all of this. And so, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Um, it was frustrating, very, very frustrating from going to throwing every day, being one of the first people to throw at practice to being the guy to watch and picking up implements for your teammates as they continue to practice. That I feel like that's that's one of the most frustrating things for an athlete, especially somebody who's gotten to the point where it's like they only have certain things they need to focus on to become one of the greatest athletes in their position. And it just gets to a point where it's like all you can do is focus on your focus on yourself, but at the same time you have to make sure you're supporting your teammates, because just because you're injured doesn't mean you stop showing up to practice or you stop coming because you don't get a throw. You still have teammates. Although track is an individual sport, but at the same time it's a team sport because you are on a team. So you still want to be able to watch your teammates, help them throw, even help the coach, because maybe you see something that coach did and you throw in a tip or two in there for them. But for
Yep.
me, it was more so, well, I've had one of two injuries actually. So when I sprained my wrist sophomore season throwing, that was a big deal for me because it was it wasn't even like, okay, I got the surgery and that was it. It was a waiting thing. I just had to wait until it was healed, until the doctor told me, okay, you're good to go. And so I was just, it was a couple months actually. I was just waiting. I was able to do a little here and there, but I mean, the most thing was the physical therapy and just doing what the doctor advised you to do, because it's not what you can do. So you can only do what they ask you. Make sure you're repeating those things at home, and then at practice, you're supporting your teammates. Even if you're doing the smallest things, even if it's just the basic drills, as if you're starting from scratch all over again. You just want to make sure you have that muscle memory, but at the same time, you're uh you're not losing any of your skills all because you got injured. And then the second time was for me was with my knee. And my knee has been an on and off thing for a couple of years now. But the thing is, I think it's one of the main things has to be physical therapy, because physical therapy, it helps a lot. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're incorporating that just about anywhere outside of the physical therapist's office. Like when you're at
Absolutely.
home, even at practice, I'm at practice doing a few of the stretches that the physical therapist had me doing. And then when you're doing those stretches, but at the same time, maybe you do a couple small things just to make sure that you're still able to do your skills. Like for me, I was still able to do turns a little bit, but I wasn't able to throw at the time. And but even turning without an implement is hard, but at the same time, it ensures that your turns are perfect. And it gets to a point where it's like it's muscle. So when you come back even stronger. I feel like the main thing is just the recovery, because once you come back, then you're like on a whole nother level. Your mindset has changed completely, and now it's to the point where it's like you feel like you've lost so much time. So now you have to go into overdrive just to make all that up and come back to where everybody else is.
Absolutely. And speaking of making up time lost, the pandemic. So um,
Ugh.
just to jump back just a little bit about homeschool and then the whole athletic side of it as well.
Hmm.
Would you say that your schedule or your course material has been different than any other student who was forced to homeschool due to the pandemic?
Um, I want to say yes because, okay, since the pandemic, nothing really changed for me because I was always set on course. Like once this semester started, I was always like, I had in mind that I wanted to finish early, get ahead, and I was always ahead from the time this semester started. So when the pandemic started, it never really affected me. It just pushed me to want to get done even faster. But at some point, it did kind of affect me because it kind of threw me off focus because now my brothers were home, and so now it wasn't only me at the house trying to do work. All three of us were, and so then it got to the point where it was like, okay, I wasn't focused as much as I should be. So I didn't finish when I had planned to, but I still got done earlier than they expected me to, which was good for me. But the pandemic, it didn't really change anything for me being a homeschool student, or already being a homeschool student compared to those who were doing public school now who had to finish their year off doing online.
Speaking of finishing, so you skipped the 11th grade, you skipped your junior year, and you
Yes,
decided to graduate a year earlier, right?
yes.
Was there, in your opinion, was there an advantage to taking that route?
Yes and no. I want to say the only advantage really for me was that was it was really only academically, was that I was able to get ahead and just be done. But at the same time, I want to say it was more of a disadvantage than an advantage because now it's a whole year loss of throwing where I could improve my marks. And now it's senior year. So now that's my whole junior year where the start of the recruiting process just got pushed up an entire year. So now I'm rushing to get in college essays and filling out questionnaires and things like that to get put my name out there for coaches and colleges to see. So the main thing was that, okay, now once I made that decision, me and my parents, we automatically started thinking what the next thing was with college. So now we started reaching out to schools and searching for my major and things like that.
So speaking of school, and you've already spoken about the recruiting, how you got recruited and things like that. My next question was going to be, is it still possible to become a D1 or a D2 athlete and be homeschooled? I think a lot of high school athletes and their parents, a lot of people are just not informed that that is still possible. And we're
Yeah.
looking at you, we see that it is. So can you kind of tell us about like
Yes. I feel
what it's
like
like?
even being a homeschooled athlete, I feel like probably even more possible for you to become a D1 or D2 athlete being a homeschooled athlete compared to being an athlete for being an athlete in high school. I want to say that because now it may be difficult because you don't have all those team coaches putting your name out there for you, but at the same time, now you're like you only have to worry about yourself. So it's like it's just you and your parents and the coaches of whatever sport it is you're playing, and that's your support beam right there. So that everybody is focusing on you, making sure that your name is out there to all the coaches, your marks, your academics, everything like that. And the thing I feel like with high school, being a high school athlete is different. It may be difficult or easier to become a D1 or D2 athlete because you have so many more coaches, but at the same time, it's just as many more athletes. So you're not the only one the coaches are focusing on. But being a homeschool athlete, I would only have to worry about myself at that point. And my coaches and my mom and dad, they were all there for me, made sure putting my name out there, making sure that coaches knew who I were. And it was just that much easier for me to be able to like for colleges to know that okay, this is who he is, this is his GPA, these are his marks, and it just made things smoother for me, anyways.
Absolutely. And so you did speak about being recruited. So can you tell us what the recruiting process was like for you?
The recruiting process was it was different than what I expected to be, considering that I skipped my entire 11th grade year. So that was a year of recruiting that I had lost. But at the same time, it kind of worked out in my favor. So the thing is, with me and my dad did most of the college searching. So first thing we did instantly, we just looked up the top schools for my major, which was it was computer science at first, but then we dug deeper and I realized that cybersecurity was more of what I wanted to do. So we just looked up the top schools that had cybersecurity. Then we went to go see if they had a track team. If they had a track team, then we go look for the head coach. And then even if the throws coach, then we find those coaches. Then we went and emailed those coaches saying that I was interested and that if I plan to visit, I would like to visit. I would like to see them if possible, and that then I would give them my marks just so they like knew who I was. And then the thing is, when I was emailing these coaches, I made sure that the subject was something that they caught their eye because they're getting tons of emails every day. So it's just something that catches their eye, so they see that I emailed them. And then once that happens, then we'll just go back. I'll either apply for the school, or I'll just fill out the questionnaire. I think I did that for just about every school that I was into that had the cybersecurity major. I would just fill out the track and field questionnaire if they had a track and field team. And then we kind of just did a little research on the track and field team, see what their athletes were looking like, how the team was. And then we just did that. And then next thing you know, coaches started emailing me back saying that yes, they would like to they would like to see me. They would love to have me on a visit, telling me to apply, fill out the questionnaire if I haven't already, things of that nature. And then when Tiffin, Coach Robinson, when he emailed me back, I was highly interested because Tiffin has one of the is one of the top cybersecurity schools in the nation, considering they are a D2 school. So me and my dad, we planned to visit. Coach wanted would love to have me. The visit was great. It's a great school. It's small, but it's a small school, but it's a great school. I didn't you don't realize until you go on a visit what school you feel is for you, because
Yeah,
at one point I wanted to go to LSU, but then I kind of realized that LSU is a great school, but at the same time, it's just not the school for me. You don't realize what school is for you until you go on these visits. So once we
absolutely.
went on a visit, we realized that, okay, Tiffin just might be the school. So we talked with coach, did talked about a couple things, and then when me and my dad got back home, we did some discussing, and we I just felt like, yeah, Tiffin was a school. I didn't even need to do any more visits after that. So we made the deposit and we confirmed with coach and said Tiffin is the one for me, and that was it.
Wow. That was some really great advice. Thank you so much for giving us all of that information.
Of course.
Um, so you gave us a little bit of information about recruiting, different ways that you can do that if you're homeschooled, sending those emails, reaching out to the coaches, having a great subject line or topic
Yes.
so that it catches their attention. And then you also made sure that everyone is aware that it is possible to still receive an athletic
Hmm.
scholarship. Not only
Yeah.
did you receive
One
an
more.
athletic scholarship, you receive academic as well. And
Yes. Like
so,
that. Uh, that was the thing with me. Tiffin offered me. I got an academic and athletic scholarship. Now, academic was more, but the thing is, I was always big on academics, always making sure I had A's and B's and things like that. So once I got the academic scholarship, that was great. Then the athletic on top, which was even better. And I feel like the main thing, even being a homeschool athlete, is compared to being a high school athlete, is just making sure you reach out before before you're waiting for coaches to reach out to you. Because I feel like being a high school athlete, more so waiting for the coaches to reach out to you because your head coach are the ones taking care of your name being put out there. But as a homeschool athlete, you have the freedom to make sure you're putting your name out there to all those colleges, making sure they know who you are, and so that so if they realize that you're showing interest before they show interest in you, that's more of an it's more of an incline of a coach to want to see who exactly you are and things like that. And even in the email, um, just if you have some film of you like throws or whatever sport it is you play, I feel like it's great you have that in there so they don't have to do a whole lot of searching and they have it in that one email so they know who you are, what you look like, what your skills are, and things like that.
absolutely. Okay, awesome. Um, my next question is, I'm pretty sure you know this process. So, what is the process of ensuring that your homeschool coursework is approved by the NCAA?
Um, um, I want to say the main thing is just having a transcript, because okay, you can be homeschooled, but I feel like either you have to be within, well, for me, because I was with an online institution, it just made things a lot easier because they were able to I just have to request for an official transcript, and so they send that off to the school directly. And then once that's taken care of, the main thing is just making sure that you're keeping your grades up to par, and just making sure you're staying on top of everything. Because being a homeschool athlete, um, that process, it's more so you just making sure are your grades are where they need to be more than anything. Because if your grades are where they need to be, then their institution or whatever homeschooling you're doing, they can take care of the rest, because you'll just request for that official transcript. They send it off to the school directly, and then you should be good to go.
Okay, so if you were able to give advice to another athlete who is potentially interested in homeschool, what would you tell them? What would be your advice?
Um, just think about the person you are, the type of student you are. Think about how you would be at home compared to a public school environment. Think about whether you prefer the teacher to stand right in front of you, or whether you want them to be on your screen, or you just having access to them 24/7. Just just think about those things. Just think about the kind of student you are when you're at home, or when you would be at home compared to when you would be in a desk desk teacher environment, because they're two completely different things. And just have those things in mind, because if you don't, then you're more than likely wouldn't like homeschooling, because some people, they need the hands-on, they need the teacher right in front of them, that thing. But then some people, they don't need all of that. They're fine with having the teacher on the screen, or just making sure they have access to those type of things. So I think for anybody out there who's considering homeschooling, the main thing is just know who you are and know the kind of student you would be at home compared to being in school, because they're two completely different things, and you just need to know how you would be in each situation.
Awesome. And for all the parents who are watching, from student athlete to another parent, what advice would you give to help them with their decision to homeschool their athlete?
Um, to all the parents, I feel like the best advice is just make sure you're there. You support your kid and whatever they decide, because either way, supporting them whether they're at school or at home. And I feel like when they're at home, they need even more of that support, because if you're schooling from home, you won't have that motivation to want to wake up at a certain time and things of that nature. So just making sure you're staying on top of your kid for those first couple weeks, making sure they're up at a reasonable hour, making sure they're staying on top of their work, making sure they're still able to focus, and just making sure you're checking their grades every now and then, just to make sure that they're not falling behind or anything slipping or things like that. Because once they get in a comfortable habit of doing things a certain way, then it gets to a point where they'll still need your support, but they'll already be on top of everything, because at that point they'll know what to do, they'll know how to do it, and they'll have a routine, so now it just becomes second nature to them at that point.
Wow, that's awesome advice for both the athlete and the parents. I think that was like hands down awesome advice. And so I have one more question for you, Elijah. Now that you have experienced homeschool, you skipped your junior year, you graduated during the coronavirus pandemic,
Mhm.
and you earned an athletic scholarship. All of that happened in the same year. It's
Yeah,
literally, it hasn't even been a full year yet. So
no, it hasn't.
all of this has happened this year. Um, what can can you name like one thing, just one thing that you would have done differently if you had the chance, considering all of these things that have happened?
One thing I would have done differently. Uh, One thing I would have done differently was probably how I approached homeschooling, because homeschooling, okay, I knew that's what I wanted to do, but the way I approached it could have been different because I approached it thinking this was something that, I could just do it anytime. I wake up, do the work, and that was it. But for me, I just had to. It was just a big adjustment, but at the same time, it was more so the motivation because now I got to a point where it was like, okay, I know I'm homeschooling, but at the same time, I know I need to have a schedule so I don't fall off of it. And I fell off my schedule at one point, but just the same thing with your parent being your support system. As long as they're there to back you up. Me talking with my mom, we set up a schedule, we had a planner, and then once that was able to get done, that made things a lot easier. So the main thing for me, one thing I would change was how I approach homeschooling from the jump. Because if I approached it differently, then I probably would be done even before the pandemic even began.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot said. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. I think we probably got through a little bit more than 21 questions
Yeah.
because I had some follow-ups to some of the
Hmm.
things that you were saying. So I think you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for joining me today and
No
informing
problem, coach.
the athletes and the parents and coaches about the homeschool life of an athlete. So thank you so
Of
much.
course.
And I look forward to seeing you in the future.